Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with Kev for your fans forum slash Celtic preview slash transfer rumour roundup. It's everything going on at Aston Villa at the moment. Make sure you smash the like button and hit that subscribe button. We're marching on past 5k, on to very close to 5,200, I think, on the road to 6k and on the road to 10k, obviously. So you guys can help us get there. Like, subscribe. We've already got questions coming in, so keep your questions coming in as well. You know what it's like on Fans Forum night. We've obviously got a few bits to talk about, but we will, of course, go through your questions and comments as well. Kev, it's been a while, mate. How you doing? A little bit under the weather, but, hopefully tomorrow night's Champions League game can cheer you up a little bit.
Well, I'm hoping to be a bit like after the Monaco performance for Aston Villa, to respond to that performance like a phoenix from the flames. Which, if you'd have seen me yesterday compared to now, I'm hopefully the resurgent form of myself. No, I've been a bit rough, sore throat, runny nose. I think they call it man flu as a technical term.
Yeah, it's the worst as well, man flu is, isn't it?
It's worse than all sorts, worse than childbirth. Jokes.
Worse. Yeah.
Jokes. But I couldn't miss this. Obviously, last Champions League group game. We're on the road to 2 million subscribers. So I don't want to hear any more of these 5,200 rubbish from you. On the road to 2 mil. We're going to Mr. Beast it up, and let's get into this.
Good. Yes, of course. So, yeah, we've got loads to talk about. Obviously, transfer rumours that seem to be developing every second. All these in the nose, Fabrizio Romano's, Ben Jacobs, you name it, talking about trying to get the latest scoop, trying to get the next news on Aston Villa, because we seem to be the team that, I think, possibly for our own desperation, and also, I guess, through Unai Emery and his potential, and Monchi with his contacts, we seem to be the team that are at the head of every rumour. So we'll get into all that. We'll talk, obviously, Celtic, huge game tomorrow. But first of all, I don't think we've done a proper kind of debrief or Lions Raw show about the game on Sunday, because, quite frankly, it wasn't the best of games. But what are your thoughts on Villa at the minute in terms of, the game on Sunday? It kind of encapsulates how we've been this season, to be fair. It's just, for 20 minutes good, then for sort of 25, 30 minutes not so good, then almost throwing it away at the end.
Yeah, I think it's something that Villa fans have struggled to get used to this season, on the back of, obviously, what had been two pretty flawless seasons, considering where we'd come from that Steven Gerrard era. And the expectation soars. Of many Villa fans were expecting us to reach the moon this season. And when you look at the teams that are actually performing, Liverpool head and shoulders above everybody else. You've got Bournemouth doing fantastic stuff. Forest have been great. And then you'd probably say that the next one is Newcastle with their recent form. Other than that, everybody, Arsenal have been consistently decent, but still nowhere near where they thought they would be with Man City's fall off. Man City, Arsenal, lesser so, Tottenham, Man United. So many teams have really struggled this season. Look what West Ham are languishing, with obviously the money they spent in the summer. And when you add to that the Champions League campaign, it's obviously been something that we've struggled with. I think we've also struggled with form. I think we've struggled with players not reaching the heights that they reached in previous years. And I don't want to say that I'm now used to it, because I'm not, because it's my biggest frustration that we can perform like we've performed against Man City, like against Bayern Munich. There's been some really good performances lately, actually, and the form has been upturned, but then you have that pretty insipid performance away in Monaco, and then you follow up with, I was convinced with the Unai in the stands that they were like, oh my God, he's given them an absolute rocket after the Monaco game. They're going to blow West Ham away. And after that first 20 minutes, it went away with a whimper. Ironically, when Tyrone Mings went off, it is frustrating, and we're seeming like we're losing a bit of ground on those teams ahead of us. But I still think they're eminently catchable, the teams in the top five. Not all of them, but definitely some of them at the bottom of that. And there's still loads to play for, and a couple of signings in, maybe a couple more. It's a really exciting time, but I think it's just all about making the next right decision. And for Aston Villa, get through to the top 8 of the Champions League, and then you can really have a bit of a rest got into February from European football, and you can really have a go at the league then and try and get some consistency.
Yeah, we're obviously you're very much glass half full kind of Villa fan. I'm sort of hinging between the two depending on how I'm feeling any particular minute. My issue is, and I was just on with the Loaded Mag boys, the Newcastle channel. They do like a Premier League show, and I was just saying, like, yes, we're 4 points off fourth, and we're doing this in the Champions League and all that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But my issue is that as Villa fans, we're kind of waiting for us to hit a groove or win 3, 4, 5 games in a row to kind of get into that sort of top 5, top 4, and really show what we're about. But we haven't done that this season. So there's nothing that's telling me in terms of the way that we're playing at the minute that we're going to be able to do that. We may do it, but nothing is indicating to me that, if you could see it in performances, if you could see it in chances created, if you could see it in being unlucky in games where we're so close to getting it, but nothing is suggesting to me that we're going to go on a run of 4, 5, 6 wins in a row. And that's the problem to me. I can't see it at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the other half of my glass, I also think this is an interesting phrase. Some people are glass half full, some people are glass half empty. But if I'm glass half full, what's the other half?
Yeah. It's just how you're looking at it, like in terms of.
I know. I'm being.
We've got more to do, whereas it's like.
No. I'm always more optimistic because I believe that I know that Villa aren't shaping what they do based on what Kevin on the Villa Park podcast says. Although I would like to hope sometimes they watch us, but I'm sure they don't.
You never know. Prince William could be watching. Yeah.
Prince William is actually Rachel Insall Lewis, 100% of confirmed.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm joking. So look, I want to be optimistic about what's going on, but we can't also hide from the facts of what's happened. The thing for me, I think, which may well become a question even more soon if we don't start to pick up, is how successful has Monchi been and how successful have the transfers been? Because if you look at the summer window, really, who's having an impact? Ross Barkley's come on and done well in games. Anana's, I don't think, started that many games. Matsson's not started that many games. Anana started well with a few goals, but has struggled to sort of stay consistently fit. Matsson's been in and out of the team. He was terrible the other day against West Ham. We bought Baranachea and obviously Illing Jr. and they haven't played. We bought Lewis Dobbin. God knows, well, I know why, but you get my point. And actually, when you look around some of the transfers that made by other teams, you look at some of the players that Bournemouth brought in, Forest brought in, other teams have brought in. You can't say there weren't available players out there that would have made a difference to our squad, and even to the first team. So that is definitely a question. Form has been a real problem, and if you look at some of the players in this team now, I don't want to ever be like, are they going to get back to it, and is that them done? But Bailey's probably been good for us. I don't know, 20% of his time he's played for us. If you look at across a period of his Villa career. McGinn's not been great this season generally compared to maybe the heights of previous season. He's only 30, but is he playing too much? With Scotland as well. Watkins obviously missing a lot of big chances. Konza was actually good in the weekend, but probably not to the heights he's been at before. Martinez dropped off a little bit, hasn't he? It's only really been Kamara and Tielemans that have played, you'd say, anywhere near the levels. Dini's been good, yeah. And Rodgers, obviously, where he's come from. When you've got too many players not at it, I think that's a big issue. And the final thing for me is, I just think that from an attacking perspective, well, I was going to say offensively, but actually it's the other meaning of the word. We are actually quite offensive in terms of our attacking play because it's been slow.
Both, mate. Defense and we're offensive in defense and we're offensive in attack.
Yeah, slow, ponderous, almost as if we're waiting for the opposition to just let us what we want to do. And you hope with a Marlon coming in, he can have an impact. And you hope with if it's going to be Felix or whoever else might potentially come in the forward positions if Buendia goes, we can maybe get a bit of impetus going there. But and the final point I'll make on this is I also don't think it helps having to have Watkins for 65, 70 minutes and then Durán. I think you lose a bit of flow. I don't think if we didn't have Durán or didn't have Watkins, I think you maybe get a bit more consistency in that. So I've made about 98 points there. So do with that what you will.
One more final one. Are you all right? You Colombo.
I'll have some
No, I said this about 3 months ago with the Watkins and Durán thing. I said it doesn't help either of them. Watkins only getting 60 minutes because it puts unnecessary pressure on him, and then Durán only coming on for 30 minutes. It doesn't help either of them. It really doesn't, because you just don't know the flow of the game. You don't know how the situation's going. Yeah, it just doesn't help. It just doesn't help. PJJ says a decent run of 45 consistent minutes would do. It's some of our players. I mean, I've said I absolutely love him, but Morgan Rogers goes from prime Messi to like dog and duck in the space of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like he can kick a ball. If there's a bigger drop off in kind of whether it's fatigue, whether it's mentality, whether it's confidence, I don't know. But sometimes it's like, what are we watching here?
Yeah, but I would say with Morgan Rogers, there's so much pressure on him. Players come from the Championship only a year ago from the Championship, and now he's our major attacking outlet. We need more from Philogene for the first half of the season when he played. We need way more from Leon Bailey. Buendia in his cameos hasn't done a fat lot. Watkins has obviously
Ramsey
missed.
can't stay fit.
Ramsey can't stay fit. Watkins missed a lot of chances. McGinn doesn't do for us what he does for Scotland. It's Tielemans with his through balls, and it's Rodgers making stuff happen. And obviously, there's the odd goal for Watkins, and Durán, of course, has scored a few, albeit from the suspects mostly. So he's carrying the team in terms of attacking. That's why he's playing so many minutes. And I think anyone that knows anything about it, if you've ever played football to any level, God, I could have a tussle with someone that's 20 years older than me playing football on a Tuesday night. If you're grappling for the ball, it tires you out. He's doing that multiple times every game against elite athletes. He's going to be fatigued, and he's running with the ball. He's progressing it. It's no wonder he's got fatigue in his legs, and then of course he's playing for the England setup, England
Yeah,
team.
I think you're
So
being a bit too nice. I mean, some of the passes are just horrific. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Like the pass to Bailey the other day. I mean, what is that?
Well, let's just say we're both correct. I mean, he's been sloppy, but I don't think he's the only one that's been.
No, of course not. I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm just saying it's because of the expectations placed on him. Yeah, we could say it's fair or unfair, but he's put himself in that position by playing so well. But it's just that 20 minutes against Monaco in that second half. I mean, what? Yes, you can say he's tired and stuff, but play the simple passes. Just do it easy for a bit, and that's a decision making thing, right? I get it. I absolutely get it. But yeah, it doesn't make it any less frustrating. Don't get me wrong. As much as Ollie Watkins missing an easy chance doesn't make it any less frustrating either.
Yeah.
It's just been that sort of situation, or Emi Martinez not coming for crosses when it's the ball staying in the air for 10 minutes. I mean, it's embarrassing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we could have lost that game the other day based on, multiple chances at the back post. I mean, are we going to learn that? I mean, you can almost see why sometimes he wants a Konza or maybe a Juan Foyth or someone at that back post playing that sort of hybrid right back role, because we were exposed to that time and time and time. I wonder why we didn't learn, but I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't bring Bogart on. Actually, that was it's a bit of a surprise to me to put Digne centre half rather than bring Bogart on.
Yeah, he's answered the question, I guess, and you can't really say you can understand why it just didn't work for whatever reason. I've got to go through a few comments. We've got nearly 300 in the chat already, so phenomenal stuff. Please smash the like button as well, guys. Please subscribe if you're new. I don't want it to turn into a moan fest or anything like that at all. Obviously, we're going to cover lots of different things. Matty says, Barkley, our best signing. Dave said, I think 20% Bailey has been good. He's very generous. Kev,
more like 17.2.
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Sai AVFC says Conte's confidence was hit playing right back. David folks says, have we overachieved? Potentially.
Maybe, yeah.
T Banger says, come on Villa, please sort this crap form out. Gary says, Monchi ain't cooking yet. Good signs on paper, but the big names have been poor. Kevin says Rodgers is getting too big for his boots. And David said he was a little bit like that at Borough as well. Villa boy, I can't wait for tomorrow. We're going to get into that as well. Carl says, similar to you, that's because we're expecting Rodgers to be what he isn't. Rodgers is a winger, not a 10. He holds onto the ball too long at times. Saya says, Rodgers has missed a good few chances too, not only Ollie. A good 10 like Shirky would release Rodgers' game. I think Carl's mentioned him before. I think he might be available at a good price. T-Banger said it could be his overall fitness. Rodgers may need to do tons of conditioning Also, he might be trying too hard. He has to pass, not run with it all the time. Yeah, mate, yeah, I agree with that. Maybe there's like getting used to that conditioning, getting used to that fitness, getting used to the number of games. And like he says, sometimes letting the ball do the work. He is a really good progressor with the ball, and they kept running with the ball. Sometimes it's like, I always thought this was great with Ollie Watkins, and maybe it's something that he's sort of taken out from his game of late. And I used to love this about a certain player who we can't mention his name, but he was never the quickest at the start of the game. But because of how good his speed endurance was, by the time he got to 75 minutes, he was still running at the same speed. Same with Watkins, like he's not particularly fast. So at the start of the game, whoever's his centre back seems like they're faster than him. But when it gets to the 75th, 80th minute, he's faster than those centre backs because his speed endurance is so good, because of the ability to do 10, 11 sprints at the same pace. Rodgers, maybe he does need to improve that conditioning, because he can maybe do 5 of those really long busting runs. But maybe if he can improve his condition, maybe he can do 6, 7, 8 of those and still do it at 80, 90 minutes for more games in a row.
It's a real underrated strength of Ollie Watkins, isn't it? That, I mean, this is the thing. Doesn't look like he's got searing pace, but actually later in the games he does come to life. And I think that's a point. If he's on the bench from 65 minutes, then he's not having a chance to do that so much as he.
Yeah, exactly.
Durán's a very, very different player, and the reality is they don't both fit in the same team. So I think we are in a scenario where we've got that Spurs and Harry Kane problem. Whether it's going to be Soldado coming in or Vinicius Junior or whoever it might be, who's maybe not quite good enough to start games. Maybe the odd, if you're in the Conference League, it might be all right. Champions League. Durán is definitely good enough to play for us, definitely good enough to start. And I'm at the point now with Durán where I think Watkins is a better all-round player, but I think almost Durán, I would be as happy if Durán started as if Watkins started at the moment. As happy, but I think Watkins is a better all-round player. But what you're going to do? Are you going to keep them both happy? No, you're not.
Absolutely not. I do think either of them benefits from starting games. Definitely. I think the last 2 or 3 games, Durán, and it's not his fault. There's lots of different circumstances. I think none of the subs did well on Sunday at all. But him coming off the bench, as I say, it doesn't help either of them. It doesn't help either of them. I think they both benefit from starting at the moment.
Yeah.
I've said this before. I think Watkins is pretty generally very good at all things as a forward player, whereas Durán is outstanding at finishing, and that's the problem. That's the problem sometimes for Ollie Watkins, because he's kind of good at all things. He's not outstanding at anything.
Is Durán outstanding at finishing?
I mean, you look at some of the finishes that he's put in.
No. Let me just sort of justify that point, right? He's scored some absolute worldies, but how many times in a season does a player score that many worldies? He's capable of the absolutely unreal. But I just think, like, when he's come on off the bench, the clutch moments, he's scored headers. You look at those goals that were disallowed in the Champions League, just sweeping finishes. The finish that he did against West Ham, just instinctive one-touch finish. I'm not saying he's not a good finisher, and he scored all types of goals. There was the header against Leicester, great header against Forest. Obviously, we didn't win that game, so absolute smash them in. Yeah, I think he saw one when he hit it into the ground deliberately to sort of pop it over the keeper. So he's got all sorts of his luck. I mean, I just think a lot of his goals have been, wow, where's that come from? And I think in the second half of the season, if you see how many times he shoots, sometimes when he shouldn't shoot, every now and then, and when he shoots when he shouldn't shoot, he goes in. But what about a time when he shoots when he should have passed it and we would have scored that one? So you never know, do you?
100% agree, and I think that's part of the reason why he doesn't play as many times as Ollie does, because I don't know. I think that, in my opinion, even the goal against Everton, even the goal against Leipzig, Unai Emery would be like, "Why are you shooting from there?"
Yeah, definitely.
Like 9 times out of 10, that doesn't go in, and you're giving possession away. Unai Emery he would rather have less chances. Less shots and less chances and create the greatest chance to score than just shoot from anywhere. We know that, because we plead with the players to shoot from the edge of the box, and they're told not to.
Yeah.
And so we know that. It's one of them. It's one of them. What else have we got? Also, T-Bang says, also think if Bailey's going to be a lone striker, then he needs someone else to hold the ball up and play him in. How can he be holding up the ball and be in the box at the same time? Sometimes that is the issue, particularly when we're away from home. PJJ says, can't see why they can't play together. We used to play two up top, big number 9 with a crafty number 10. I just think it needs more training. That's the problem. Villa Boy F says he comes on after Watkins has ran the defenders ragged and scores. Fair play, but Watkins all day just needs help. He can't do it all on his own. Gary said Durán is the best long shot in Villa history. And Sai AVFC said on our goal on Sunday, Duran's not playing that 1-2 with Ramsey.
I agree.
I think that's another part of it as well.
I agree.
We'll come to that question from Stephen at the end because that's an interesting one to talk about. Actually, no, let's do it now. What's happened to our set piece coach, Austin McPhee? Our set pieces are rubbish, both attack and defence. And I think he's been a little bit conspicuous by his absence in a lot of ways. And I mean, the other day, the only time he came out of the dugout was to shout at Luca Dini when there were 6 men round the ball for the free kick, and Dini just boots it over the bar. And then the other thing that I wanted to raise with you is against Monaco, we just hoofed the ball into the box when their 2 huge defenders were just winning everything, when it looked like we needed some sort of intricate play around the box. And then against West Ham, we started doing intricate passes around the box when we probably just needed it to put it in the box, because there was 2 or 3 occasions where we could have took a quick corner and we would have caught them off guard, yet we're trying to set up these moves. I mean, what is this Austin McPhee doing at the minute?
I don't know. You were seeing him off the bench high-fiving and getting involved when it was all going really well, and you are right, he's conspicuous by his absence. Gary said he needs to get his hair cut. He can't see. Well, was it Samson, that the old Bible story, who lost all his hair and then lost his power? Maybe McPhee needs to cut his hair to get his power back. He's a remnant, isn't he, obviously of the old era of coaches, and it makes you wonder how this season's gone with our starting off admittedly pretty well with some inventive free kicks and set pieces and stuff, but it's not been great for a few months, is it really? And let's be clear, all teams at some point are going to score a free kick, set piece coach or not. Does that mean you've got you're particularly fantastic at set pieces? I mean, obviously it can make a difference, but at the moment we are weak defensively and seemingly clueless in attacking set pieces. I mean, sometimes I really have to question what we're doing. I still think back to that one. That one where like 4 or 5 of them ran over the ball. Remember that one? I remember that one. Yeah, it was like
the other day when like they played it short to Bailey, maybe then it went to Dini, and then I think Bailey tried to run him behind. Dini tried to put him over the top, and he just put it out of play. What is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I quite like an in-swinging corner with your big centre halves and big midfielders running in to try and head it. I quite like that.
Yeah. Sai says I've missed the times when our centre backs attack later corners.
That.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know it's all about delivery and you've got to get the delivery right. But maybe if the big centre backs actually attack the ball, it might give us some joy. They all seem obsessed with every team at the moment, because Arsenal do, seem obsessed with surrounding the goalkeeper. Just like, surely you just put it into an area like where, just around the penalty spot where your attacking players can get a run on the ball you can try and get ahead of the defender. Like, I don't understand what's so putting it under the goalkeeper. You're literally just trying to jump straight. Doesn't make sense to me.
Let's put McPhee on some sort of suspend him for a month, and you and I go in and just basically say that and get the same wage and see where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's enough kind of whinging and moaning after Sunday. At least, like I say, we didn't get beat. We could have lost the game in the end. We're still kind of in some sort of form in the Premier League. When I've had a look at the kind of last 5 games, I think it's like 9 points from the last 5. So it's not terrible. We had a great comeback against Arsenal. We got Wolves to come on Saturday. But in between that, we have the small matter of the top 8 to qualify for in the Champions League. And in our way are a set of results that need to go our way, or one result out of 5 that needs to go our way. But we have to beat Celtic. How much are you looking forward to this game tomorrow, Kev?
Well, I'm massively looking forward to it, and I've had a real result today because big shout out to Gaza who has sorted me out a ticket. So what a man! He couldn't go to the game, so yeah, absolute legend from the same part of Birmingham I'm from, and now he's helping me out getting tickets for the Villa. So because I wasn't going up until about 4 hours ago, so now I'm even more excited. Now I'm going to be there. Yeah, obviously the last group game, certainly not our last Champions League game, and yeah, I mean, what a night it's going to be under the lights at Villa Park. That Champions League music, John McGinn a bit emotional as he comes out leading the team, I'm sure. And we know we've got a really, really good chance. Unless every other result goes against us. I've been in that top eight. Um, we kind of need it because otherwise it's 6 games in 16 days in February, and that's just the last thing we need. But this is what it's all about. We can get lost in the maelstrom of like, oh, we couldn't beat West Ham, and we've had some bad performances this season. But what's football all about? Football's all about the big moments, and the big moments are no bigger than a battle of Britain, Aston Villa versus Celtic. I don't think we've ever played them in a meaningful game. In a game where something's riding on it. And that's the key thing. Celtic have still got an outside chance to finish in the top eight if results go their way.
Yeah, I think it was like a 1% chance or something. But look, in the words of Dumb and Dumber, you're telling me there's a chance.
Absolutely. But I mean, either way, they can get themselves a better draw.
Oh yeah. This is
draw,
the whole point of the of this group phase. So many teams and still the game still matter for so many teams. So it's massive. And like you said there, the Battle of Britain. Brendan Rodgers against a Premier League club as well. Aston Villa in this special atmosphere. We've obviously played Bayern Munich. We've played Juventus. This, if ever there was a time where the fans need to come prepared for a huge, intimidating atmosphere, this is it, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are going to be up for it, Celtic. Admittedly, they've lost one of their best players recently. A couple of other good players. Maed is out. I believe Carter Vickers is out as well.
Furiashi has gone to Rennes, and
Yeah,
they've swapped him with Jota, but obviously he can't play.
yeah.
I think Carter Vickers is out. So yeah, I mean, obviously Villa fans need to come in the atmosphere, but in terms of the quality of the opposition, they've got some good players, but ultimately Aston Villa's quality, if they play anything like they can, should shine through.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there won't be a gimme, will they?
No.
Obviously, we did play a Scottish team last season in Conference League qualification, and it was an absolute, walk in the park. I don't think it would be like that. I think Lee Johnson's Hibernian will be no match for Celtic under Brendan Rodgers. They're the standout team in the league, obviously, and they'll obviously have a lot of pride. He's a good manager. They've got some good players, but we at home should be beating a team that they'd unlikely be in the top 10 of the Premier League. Probably not. So that's just a reality, unfortunately. And I've always actually been. I've had a little bit of a soft spot for Celtic over the years. Irish Catholic family roots, so that when I was a kid, that was sort of something I was around a bit. So I'm not saying this because Celtic are being dismissive of Scottish football, but there is a massive, massive drop off in terms of quality. It's a game we simply have to win, but it doesn't really matter if it's a 1-0 off Courtney Hawes' bottom in the last minute. So
imagine that Courtney Hawes comes back in out of the wilderness.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, this would be, wouldn't it? Watkins for 65 minutes, and then Duran's warming up, and he brings on Courtney Hawes up front. Oh, God, Duran. I think about how many water bottles will be getting kicked.
Yeah. What have we got here? David says, win the midfield tomorrow, and we should be fine. Rob says, this game is so important that we have to fix our super leaky goal problem. We're letting in goals like a cheap sieve from Poundland. We can't put a sticking plaster on it. We have to take seriously, I think that is. And a question, will Celtic fans sing better than Hibs fans? I think it'll be a big atmosphere, don't get me wrong. Absolutely. They will be loud, says PJ. Kevin said, a tad cocky for some of the Celtic fan base, not based on not a lot, to be honest. So, Stephen said, we are unbeaten against Scottish teams in Europe. So, I think like I said, if we play anything like we should, and it's always been a difficult one, hasn't it, with the season this year, because it's the first time we've been in the Champions League. You know, Jacob Ramsey was interviewed saying how important it is for him, how much it means to him to hear that music and all the anthem and all that kind of stuff. It's difficult, isn't it, to kind of quantify what it means to them. We saw this arguably in the game against Ipswich, where they, we went 1-0 up and then 2-1 up, but then ultimately kind of faded at the end of the game. But then when I'm beat Bayern Munich, is there a little bit of the game on Wednesday kind of in the players' minds from the, in the game on Sunday against West Ham? Is there something about that? Like, it's such a big game, it's such a big moment to try and qualify for that top 8. There's so much riding on it, obviously money wise, obviously, the number of games in February, all that. Is there something in there that might be in the players' minds to think that is the game that we're targeting, that is the game that we're thinking about?
I don't know about that, to be honest. I mean, I can only speak from personal experience, not as a professional footballer. When I've had some, pretty low points in my life in the last 3 years, that hour playing football on a Monday or Tuesday night, I forget about everything. Everything. You could be in the peak of problems, but when you're pressing, a defender, or trying to get in a box to get on the end of something, like you switch everything off. And I think
Yeah, you're
professional
not thinking
footballers,
about tomorrow. Yeah.
you're not thinking about the next. You're not thinking about even at 9:01 when my game will finish. It's back to reality. So I don't know about that. I just think there's just inconsistency rife. Just to be clear, by the way, I'm aware that Courtney Hawes isn't registered. Just so
Yeah, we were just joking. Yeah,
it was a joke. Yeah. But just being my usual stupid self. But it does mean a lot. I speak from a fan's perspective, and I'm sure any of the Villa fans that have been lucky enough to go down to any of the Champions League game this season, even just watching it on telly, I've been to a couple of the games, and I've watched, the away games. It just, as soon as you hear that music, I mean, when I went to the Juve game, my God, but it wasn't lucky enough to go to Bayern. The Juve game, I was in the Trinity, kind of in the middle. No, I was in the Dug in the middle, and just seeing that. Obviously, it comes. The Champions League logo comes out, the music starts, the fans are singing. I mean, imagine you're a player in that environment who's played Champions League before, like like Yuri Tielemans, etc., etc. Imagine you're a player like Jacob Ramsey, who grew up round the corner, who's a Villa fan. It's in his brother family, members playing for the club. That is just the kind of thing where you will be absolutely just be spine tingling for you. I've got real high hopes for Ramsey tomorrow. Actually, I think he's come out as and said like he's taking him a few games to get back into, but he feels like he's getting back there. I think a lot of people underestimate Jacob Ramsey. I think he is, for me, still got the potential to be our absolute star boy post Grealish. The way he progresses the ball, the way he carries the ball, and I just really hope he has a run of games now to the end of the season.
Yeah, I thought there were signs that he was really getting back to his kind of dribbling the ball, getting territory sort of best particularly in the first half on Sunday. So yeah, hopefully he can get a real good run of games and sort of show what he's all about. Definitely. Question from Paul D on X says, and this is one of the big talking points: who plays next to Konsa? We've obviously
Courtney
seen
Hawes, isn't it?
Tyrone Mings. Obviously, Mings not necessarily as injured as we obviously feared, but I don't think he's going to be fit for tomorrow, for Wednesday, or potentially even Wolves. I think it's going to be a week or two. So yeah, who comes in? I don't think the Deeney experiment worked, although maybe starting the game might be slightly different. Do you drop Boubacar Kamara into that position, but then do you lose the Kamara that we need in midfield? And then you talk about Lamar Bohard, or you're talking Sil Swinkles. What's the options here? What would you do?
I would put Boharder in, however you say it. Probably Boharder, isn't it? I would put him in because I think he's got a little bit of experience this season. He's obviously a defender. I'd probably prefer Kamara to be there if I felt we could, midfield wise. But I think we might lose that midfield battle because obviously we haven't got Onana. We haven't got Barkley. So you've got McGinn, who's just back to fitness. He hasn't started a game yet. McGinn and Tielemans, maybe. I think probably you think you could cope with that against Celtic, put Kamara back there. So that is definitely an option, of course, unless he does something quite creative with the team. But I can't see what else he would do. I mean, you'd like to think we wouldn't have too much up against us. It might only be set pieces, and they'll probably have moments, but you'd think we would have most of the possession. So you probably could probably mix it up a little bit with a Bohada rather than a Kamara. But Kamara's just essential for me to win that midfield battle. They'll be aggressive and
Mm.
tenacious in midfield, and we want him doing what he does best. He's our best player at the moment. I think your best player needs to play in their best position. You've only got to look at what Konza being out of position has done for, I guess, his general performances this season.
Yeah. Few comments coming in. Richard says Dina will start there 100%. James says Swinkles played well in the League Cup. He thinks Swinkles could get the nod. Gaza said he thinks it will be Dina. Kevin says Bo Harder or Sean Teal.
Sean Teal would be perfect, wouldn't he? That Tash.
Yeah, Yentonian says it's so odd. We had all those injuries, then we had all the players back. They all lost their form. Now we've got injuries again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, just to say to that, Yentonian, as well. Do you remember when we had everybody back fit and we were like, right, that's it now. We're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. We've got the only injury we had was Robin Olsen, and then we probably lost the next game or something.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, he's going to have an embarrassment of riches and all this sort of stuff. And then now we're scratching around to see who we can play at centre back. This is the team that FOTMob have gone for. So yeah, they've gone for Dina there, Matson in at left back, then Ramsey, Rogers, Bailey still in there, Watkins up top. They're looking at Adam Eder up top for Celtic. I think he was at Norwich for a time. Austin Trusty at the back, who went down with Sheffield United, I think. So they've got some good. McGregor's good. Engels is good. So they've got some useful players. But would you make any changes like that to the Villa side? Obviously, we know Marlon can't play, so it does look like Bailey will be playing. He's just not been in any sort of form at the minute. But is there a shout for Durán to start, or what would you say?
No, I think it is. It picks itself, doesn't it? I mean, if Buendia's off, then he's obviously not starting. If Marlon can't play, that rules him out. What are the other options in wide areas? I think it's going to have to be Bailey and Rogers, and obviously Watkins. It's going to have to be, isn't it? And Ramsey, sorry, as in the front four positions. And then if you look at the midfield, picks itself, doesn't it? Kamara, Tielemans. I think that it's only whether you bring in Bohada for Digne, then put Digne to left back, because I think Matsson's confidence. Maybe Maatsen gets his confidence back playing in a game like this, though.
McGinn maybe starting somewhere.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, to be fair, that's a really good point. I can't see McGinn not. Well, the thing is, Unai's not a man of sentiment, is he? So if obviously it's his team and he'll be up for it, but I don't think if he's fully fit, I don't think he will. I probably would expect to see. Well, that's maybe the change then, isn't it? Maybe the change is that Bailey's out and McGinn's in there.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Maybe you put Rogers out to one of the flanks, so you play Rogers off the right and McGinn behind on Watkins, or McGinn stays out on that right hand side, Rogers in through the middle. Yeah, and maybe you're talking then substitute wise. Bringing a Bailey and a Durán on with sort of 20-25 minutes to go is probably a better option than bringing John McGinn on with 25 minutes to go.
But there is rumours of a £59 million bid from Al Nassr for Durán.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, we'll talk transfers in a bit. Antonio says, let's go 2 strikers. And what else have we got? T-Bank said put Buendia in at number 10 role and Rogers on the wing instead of Bailey. I just can't. Now Buendia looks like he's on his way to Bayer Leverkusen. Don't see him playing. George in the chat says would not play Dini at centre back again. It was a disaster. Kamara back to centre back. Bohada in the holding midfield role could be an option. We need our players to pull their socks up. Yeah, that's what Steve Bruce would be saying definitely. And is it a case of even if he played Bohada at centre back, Dini at centre back, Kamara at centre back, I go back to the first point. If Villa play how they should play, should it be kind of irrelevant who they play at centre back ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in a fixture like it's a one-off fixture like this, then there's no gimmies. And again, I don't think there'll be a walkover, but I'd be surprised if we didn't win the game by at least a couple of goals at home. And I think that's what a proper team that's going to finish top out of the Champions League should be doing. They're a lesser opposition. They've got significant issues in terms of, as you said, Furuhashi, Maeda, Carter Vickers, all not available for either transfer or injuries. They've still got some decent players kicking around, but we're Aston Villa who've got designs for top 5, top 4 Champions League qualification. And obviously we were leading the Champions League for 3 games, and we've been there or thereabouts the top 8 for most of it. So, and we're at home, and it's under the lights at Villa Park in a night game. You know, if there's ever going to be a game that the team are going to be up for it, this is going to be it. I don't want to get carried away and say 4-5-0, whatever, but you know, I think there's a situation here where we have to stamp our authority on the game. I'm not really too worried about them pressing us, attack. So I think you could. I think whether it was Swinkles, Boharder, Kamara, Dean, I think you probably cope with it, but I would feel less happy if it was Digne there. For me, the key bit is the clicking going forward, taking the chances. That's the key bit for me. Of course, the other key bit has been shipping goals this season. But if you've got that team that we've said there, whether it is McGinn or Bailey, and you've got Ramsey, I'm sure will start, Rodgers will start, Watkins, Tielemans. There's a lot of creativity there. I'd like to see a confident performance. I'd like to see a situation where we actually show everybody, we mean business. Because we've got the opportunity to do it, and you don't get many of these opportunities. We've not been in this competition for 40 and a bit years, and we don't know the next time we're going to be in it if we keep our league form going, unless we go on to win it this season, of course, which, someone's got to win it. But you get my point. It might be the last Champions League game other than the playoff, whatever. That some of these players might play. Okay, there'll be a playoff game at Villa Park, but you get my point. Like, you never know, do you? You might not get picked. You might not get picked.
Yeah, definitely. I am absolutely buzzing for this game. Quickly before we move on to transfers, and then we will flip back to end on predictions and all that. But T-Bang says, could we play a back 3? Yeah, I was thinking this before, earlier this afternoon. Could you play, like, say, Konsa, obviously in the middle, Digne as the left-sided centre-back, Boharder as the right-sided centre-back, and then Cash at wing-back and Maatsen at wing-back?
Why? Why would you? I think if you're maybe playing Bayern Munich at home, maybe, but you're playing Celtic at home. I don't think you need to be that defensively minded. And I think having a team where in defence you've got Digne and Cash aren't the most progressive wing backs. Don't get me wrong, Digne can get a cross in, and Cash generally seems to go back on himself, but they're not Maatsen level attacking wing backs. I think we've got better quality players further forward in the pitch to make that team better. I think there's a possibility if you wanted to keep it a bit more sturdy, but you're better off with that when you've got a Mings, Torres, and Konza as the 3 options. I think.
Yeah.
Defensively.
Yeah, definitely. I think a Celtic fan in Josh Boy said, honestly, like you said, given the vast difference in finances, if Villa play how they can, they will win. But we have a good record against English teams, and you have more pressure with the top 8 still on. He's saying it should be a good one. He'd say 2-1 Villa, but he's hoping they can grab a 1-1 or something. So, yeah, we know it's going to be a tough game. We absolutely do. So, bring it on. But we'll get predictions shortly, because we always like to end with the predictions, to be fair. But you can still pop them in the chat, and we'll star them for later. Guys, we have over 400 people watching on X and on YouTube, which is just amazing at nearly 10 o'clock at night. So please do, if you haven't already, smash that like button on YouTube, hit the subscribe button as well. If you're new to the channel, help us on the road to 6K or 2 million, as Kev said before. And on X, follow us at Villa Park Pod and at KTAVFC. And make sure you click retweet, hit the like button on X as well to help spread the word. So, transfers. We are in the market for a number of players at the minute, but it looks like, again, with PSR and with, I guess, the way the market is, deals are flying in left, right, and centre, and it's looking like, I don't know, Jhon Durán is the hot property. Is it just paper talk? Is it pure speculation? Is it trying to unsettle him? We're seeing Al Nassr putting bids in, potentially. We're seeing PSG wanting to put bids in. We're seeing Chelsea wanting to put bids in. What's the situation, in your opinion, with Jhon Durán?
Well, in the words of Louis Walsh, I like him. But there's clearly something, I think, now. I mean, people talk about, is it right to say about his character or not? But there's clearly a situation where we can't play them both together. I don't think it would be a good idea to get rid of him now in January, because obviously we're fighting on 3 front still. We're still very much in the FA Cup. We've got to play a beleaguered Tottenham at the moment, where we haven't got a very good record against them generally in recent years. But if there's ever a time to play them, or they might be thinking the same about us, to get through then to the fifth round of the FA Cup, which would be the furthest we would have been in a hell of a long time, probably about 15 years plus, maybe. So that's obviously an opportunity. The Champions League, we know we're still in that. The knockout stages, anything can happen. There's been teams that won the Champions League over recent years, from a Porto in I think 03, 04. Monaco got to the final. We've seen PSV have won it in the 80s. We've seen Marseille win it. Red Star have won it. So you never know with the Champions League. You never know. Benfica won it in the 80s as well. Not the traditional elite big teams that you'd expect in Europe. And obviously Premier League, we want to get the the holy grail of at least Europa League. But I think we've got to be looking at the league as it is and thinking Premier League top 5 qualification for Champions League. You don't want to be losing one of your top 2 strikers. We've got the best strike force in the league, I think. But you can't keep them both happy. And does it affect our play not having just Watkins? But then if he gets injured, what are you going to do? Well, this is the question. I think there might be a situation where if the right kind of money comes in, I could see the deal happening. I really could. I think he might well be pushing for it. He flirted with Chelsea and West Ham in the summer. More than flirted with it in terms of his public posts he was putting out there, and then deleting photos and changing his picture and stuff. I think the more likely one, well, there's 2 things, isn't it? Is either get the cash in for the books, which is obviously really helpful to then do what they want with it. But if there's some kind of deal where a club like Chelsea has assets like a Joe Felix and an Axel Disasi, who could add options for Aston Villa in terms of an offensive option with when Deer goes, and a defensive option when you've got Torres injured for still a bit and Mings injured, and then I could see something like that working where maybe there's some cash and a couple of players. But I don't want him to leave, but I don't think we've got the money to be able to bring in these kind of players without getting rid of a sale like him. And if you don't get rid of him, who are you getting rid of? Well, if a lot of fans would probably say Watkins over Durán, but he's nearly 30. Are you going to get the same level of money for him? Maybe you might, maybe you might not. But who else is your sellable asset? I don't really want to sell Jacob Ramsey. I don't think he wants to leave. I don't really want to sell Konza. I don't really want to sell Morgan Rogers. I don't really want to sell Emi Martinez. So Durán might have to be the one now. Like Louise was the one in the summer, and I said it for ages, he was my favourite player. You might have to just reluctantly say, see you later, and all the best with your career, if it enables us to do some things that make us more competitive in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, and Durán certainly doesn't, and no, neither should he have the connection with Aston Villa, and all that kind of stuff. I think he wants to go where he can improve himself, or he can play for one of the big clubs, or even get loads of money in Saudi. I don't think he strikes me, or his agent strikes me as being that, fully attached to Aston Villa. He just likes to play on the big stage and score goals. Ultimately, he doesn't really care where it is. AVFC says sell him in the summer and buy Gyökeres with the money. Michael said Durán will be here until the end of the season, so let's appreciate him. Stephen said Villa should not feel pressured to sell in this window. The summer will be a different story. PJJ said he's not for sale. And he also said regarding Durán, I think something leaked out of conversations with Chelsea. AVFC, it's Durán's agent. So there's lots in there with it. Well, I've lost my train of thought there now, but the thing with Durán is, and the thing with these deals, when we're talking like 70, 80, 100 million, whatever we're talking, can these deals get done in the space of 5 days? Now, I'm not suggesting that conversation won't have happened up to this point, but do you get my point? Like, if we've said he's not for sale and all this sort of stuff, and he's signed a longer deal and all this, and when we're talking like Durán going, we're talking getting Felix and Disasi, and we're talking all these spinning plates. Is it possible to get this done in 6 days?
I think it is in the modern game of football. You can see stuff happening, get your deal sheet in time. Sometimes sort some of the finer points outside of it once they decide whether they've got the financial, wherewithal and to make the deal happen. And that's the thing. The thing is, the problem I think you've got with it is all the machinations around it. Does one player need to leave another club to then leave another club to leave another club to make it work? We've been hit by that already, by Diego Carlos leaving and not having a replacement. I think we thought we had Loic Bardet in. Bardet, what la die day. That would have been such a good song, wouldn't it? But he's not coming now. But we thought it was in, and all of a sudden we're now going, well, we've only got, at Sod's Law, Tyrone Mings gets injured against West Ham, and then all of a sudden you've got one centre back, and you're playing Luca Dean, and out of nowhere, 3 weeks ago we had Carlos, Mings, Torres. Mings couldn't get a game. So
Mm.
it is crazy how it changes, and this is a scenario that I think a lot of teams are going to be in, because teams want to strengthen. Spurs are going to probably want to bring someone in. West Ham are going to want to bring someone in. Everton want to stay in the league. If Wolves sell Cunha, they'll be after someone. They're apparently after Disassi as well. So you never know what's going to happen. So and there'll be teams like Arsenal that may well want to kick on by getting a striker in and might be competing with us. And there's going to be a few teams after players. I don't really worry about the length of it. I just want us to strengthen the team, and actually I think we're looking like we're making signings now in terms of the links that we probably should have made in the summer.
Yeah, the problem is that you can't all the maneuverings of a deal that's worth 80 million and then trying to sign replacements to cover that, like whether that be, we'll talk about him in a second, whether that be a Felix and then a Disassi. It's so difficult, or a Cunha. It's so difficult to do that, to kind of negotiate this deal while negotiating 3 or 4 other deals, seeing what happens with that club that you sign them from, to see if they get their players in. It's like, it's nigh and impossible to do that in 5 or 6 days. That's just my opinion on it. Selling Durán isn't the issue, and I think we do sell him. It's just making sure, like you've just said it yourself. We thought we'd sold Carlos and got a replacement. That replacement then said, "Nah, sorry." So it's like a house, selling a house. You'll go down this chain, and then someone goes, "Nah, I don't want it." The more links in the chain, the more people involved in these deals, the more players involved, the more difficult it becomes.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely. It's like any kind of sales scenario. The more hurdles in the way, the more chance there is of it going tits up. So, as they say. So, yeah, I don't know, but listen, we've been saying for ages we've got to trust Monchi, and this is the time for him to earn his cash, isn't it?
Yeah. Yen Tony said, I trust Emery, but need to see Monchi/Emery signings improve the team as other players leave. Paul D said his price might be never as high again, i.e. Durán. Let's face it, he's not going to be with us in 2 years anyway. Sell and get a second striker like Felix or Cunha. Gary said Durán has quadrupled his value in 2 years and he's unproven. Lots of people saying 100 million. People saying unless Cunha comes in. T-Banger says, okay, if we sell Durán for 80 to 100 million, then who is available for less than 80 million that's a clinical finisher that would come to Villa? Stephen said, got to sell Durán to a non-Premier League club 6 months ago. We all wanted rid of him. Couple of goals, his value skyrocketed. Won't get more for him than we would now or the summer. And any more in there? Michael saying he's under contract. So this is the question, and it's going to keep coming up, I guess, until the summer. And I do think he's probably gone in the summer. I don't think he's gone now, unless there's some sort of loan with obligation or something like that. That might be a way of them kind of doing some sort of deal. Now, it has been said that we're in negotiation all day with Chelsea. Apparently, I don't know how these journalists know all this, and have they seen Monchi just on his phone constantly, just looking at what's the code? Is it 020 in Chelsea, in London? Yeah, 020.
Monchi's on the King's Road, isn't he? He's having a walk.
Yeah, just on the phone there, or getting a black cab around, just with a Chelsea director in there constantly circling London. But apparently they've been speaking about João Felix and Axel Disassi today, and the talk was Disassi on loan. And then it was talk about Felix coming in, but now you can't loan 2 players from the same clubs. And it was, is it João Felix on a transfer fee? Then is it Disassi on a transfer fee? He's apparently agreed terms. So where do you feel that we are on this? And João Felix was a player that you wanted for about 18 months, Kev. You've been talking about him on this podcast.
Well, I feel like in the chat I'm seeing a lot of João Felix. No thanks, but
yeah,
I would love to have João Felix at Villa. I think he's an absolute baller, and I think Emery would be able to get the best out of him, play him in the right kind of positions. I think, a good João Felix, I think he's only 24, 25 years old, maybe just turned 25. He's got bags of experience. I know people say, but he hasn't worked out at Barca. People say he didn't want to come to us. Plenty of players don't work out at Barcelona and then end up, doing pretty well in other clubs. And plenty of players at the time would rather join Chelsea or Barcelona over Aston Villa. Let's not get sentimental about it. I mean, I I bloody love the Villa, I do, but I think if you go into a team that won the Premier League in recent years and maybe offering more money, or Barcelona obviously have won the Champions League, as have Chelsea in recent years a couple of times, then I don't think we can be overly sort of like claret and blue spectacles about it. If he's available, a player of his pedigree, and we can get him down Villa Park, I would say do it all day long. I think he's the kind of player I think that we need. Actually, you got Durán coming off the bench or compete with Watkins. If you had a player of that kind of quality, who's a different player to a Morgan Rogers, he's a different player to a Yuri Tielemans. Tielemans can open up, a defense, but he's not going past a player. He's not the same type of number 10 that a Felix is. So for me, I think he'd be a player that we don't have. He's probably more akin to a Ross Barkley 10 years ago in terms of the kind of player, that kind of attacking number 10, making things happen type player, rather than I'm saying Ross Barkley now is a bit more defensive. So I think it's a no-brainer. Disasi, obviously, he's got the unfortunate nickname, but again, he's got a decent pedigree. I've just never been overly impressed, but I think, I actually remember when I think Chelsea should have beat us last year at Villa Park. I thought he was really, really good, in that game.
He scored, didn't he? Did he score and the goal was disallowed?
Disallowed, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
No,
but
I think with Disasi, he's made some high profile mistakes that have led to goals, similar to Mings. I guess he's probably he's a 100% defender, isn't he? And he'll put his body on the line, which a lot of times could lead to a poor pass or lead to a slice clearance or something like that, or a missed header, and that unfortunately gets him labelled. And his surname kind of links well with disaster, doesn't it? So that's where he's got that from. But he's played. He's been capped for France. You don't get capped for France if you're not a decent player.
True.
We'll see.
But I was going to say, but with all that said, I mean, I'd like both, to be honest. I would, if I had a choice of Felix or Cunha, I'd take Cunha, because I think he's more proven in the Premier League. But I think if we could get Cunha and Felix in this team somehow with the Durán money, then that would be absolutely unbelievable. So from my perspective, I'm in a scenario where preferred option of proven Premier League quality would be Cunha, but if he's not available or he's going to Arsenal or whatever, then I think Felix would be really good.
Yeah. PJJ says, buy Disasi, loan Felix. I'd like him here too, Kev. Kevin Jean said, I'd signed Disasi permanent, Felix on loan, but he's turned us down twice. Cloudy with a chance of reform says, so many undercover agents that work for Villa in here. How does anyone really know Durán won't be here in 2 years anyway? A lot of players might not be here in 2 years. Stop assuming. Yeah, fair enough. Gary Howlett said he can't be that clever either. Rejoin Chelsea. Why? Wolves lads better, says David. And Carl said, of course, you would want Felix until he looks like Coutinho, then you'll blame Monchi for signing him. Weston says, Felix would be perfect at the Villa. Emery loves him.
Like it.
I like it. I like what you've done there. I see what you've done there. And it's interesting. Could you see a scenario, and I don't know with PSR, with FFP, all that, but could you see a scenario of us signing, say, Disasi, loaning Felix, or vice versa, and then keeping Jhon Durán? Like, is it do we have to sell Durán to get these two players in, or to sign? I know we can get one of them on loan, but you get my point.
I don't know the ins and outs of our books, but I would assume, based on how close we were to the bone over the summer, and the fact we've obviously brought Marlon in as well, and this young right back Garcia, I would assume that a few extra Adidas sales and a bit of Champions League qualification hasn't covered you enough to spend another probably 40-50 million quid and whatever else it is on the wages added to it as well. So I would assume that you'd have to do one or the other. It's a really, really interesting time, isn't it, for Aston Villa with these transfers? Because I also think there's a lot of scrutiny on us, with the transfers that we've made. Marlon came into not a lot of fanfare. A lot of people saying he was a bit overrated. He was another Bailey, so that's obviously one. And then we've got a young right back. Well, we bought a young right back in, I think it was the last January window, wasn't it? Well, yeah, we bought another one in terms of Nedeljkovic.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. And knowing Villa, actually, the way we've been in recent times, we'll probably sign Disasi and Felix and then send them out on loan somewhere.
Well, yeah, I think at the Antonio makes a good point. We can spend the money this window, but we'd have to sell like crazy in the summer. So it would be a kind of similar situation. We'd almost be rolling the dice in terms of, you know, how we would be able to balance it up. Like we could sign Felix, let's say, for example, and loan Disasi, and kind of roll that dice to say, well, we could qualify for the Champions League or Europa League, or go further in the Champions League to balance the books a little bit more. But we'd have to have a guaranteed sale of a Durán or a Kamara or a Ramsey by that June the 30th deadline to make sure we were kind of not falling foul of the PSR.
Yeah.
So we'd almost have to have a guaranteed sell of say Jhon Durán or something by June the 30th, because I mean Tom Colomossi said the Villa board of directors, loads of them were kind of panicking in and around that that Europa Conference League semi-final, because they knew we needed to make a big sale, because they were all by this June the 30th deadline, and then obviously maybe took the pressure off a little bit when we qualified for the Champions League, but it doesn't count it didn't count for those accounts at that time. So we could still well be by June the 1st this season, when the window reopens or whatever date it is, scrambling around to sell a player by that June the 30th accounts deadline.
Yeah, and you've also got to think though, will they look at the situation we're in now, where we are within striking distance of the top five, still in the Champions League, still in the FA Cup? And will they think, if you're going to go for it, now's the time to go for it? And then if you've got to deal with that headache, in May, then you deal with it in May, don't you? In terms of, you've got a month or so to sort it out. Maybe that's the time you've got to do it.
Well, we've all been there before, mate. I think it was this day in 1995 or 96 when Juninho was meeting at Villa Park, meeting Doug Ellis, getting into his car. It was all signed, and then Doug Ellis wouldn't pay the extra couple of million. We've been there before. We've never rolled the dice. Aston Villa have never rolled the dice for that extra signing.
Yeah, I know, it's true. Well, let's see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't sign anybody else, knowing Villa, and then I also wouldn't be surprised if we signed 2 or 3 more. I don't know how many. I think it's only 3 you can register for Champions League, so you'd have to look at that. But we need a centre half, and if Buendia goes, we're going to need probably some more cover in those attacking areas as well.
Yeah. Buendia looks like he's signed a contract, and then if he does well at Leverkusen, I think they're talking about 15 million, 20 million euros, something like that, with a sort of option to buy. So that gives us a bit of cash there. I'm sure a big sale will be done, and we could well see, someone like a Martinez or one of the established players kind of look to move on. You just never know what can happen, in this later on in the season, but we definitely need reinforcements. That is definite. I don't think Emery ideally wanted to go into the loan market, but it does look like we will have to go into the loan market. Axel Disasi, ultimately, yes, it might be a little bit of a desperate move, but he's probably the best out of the loan signings that can be made, I guess. And like you say, mate, we'll have to wait and see. What happens. But tomorrow is a huge night. We can go a long way to ease in some of those fears by getting the victory tomorrow. I will get into the chat. I think we had a few already coming in. I think quite a few people are positive. Get your score predictions in the chat, and we'll finish off with this now. Carly has said 3-1 to Villa. Antonian has said 3-1 to Villa. Who else have we got in there? None right now. So you give me your score prediction, Kev. What are you saying for tomorrow night against Celtic?
Aston Villa 2, Celtic 0. 2-0 with our recent defensive performances. I'm going to say that we are going to book the trend and keep a clean sheet, and we're going to get a couple of goals. It won't be an easy match. I think it probably, I was thinking probably should be scoring more than a couple, but I don't think it'll be as easy as some think it will be. So 2-0, goal scorers are going to be Courtney Hawes is going to get a double. No, sorry, I've used that gag too many times.
Yeah, you have to be fair.
Don't put in the comments. I know Courtney Hawes doesn't play for us. I'm going to say Ollie Watkins is going to score them both.
Wow. He hasn't, like Buses, he hasn't scored in the Champions League yet, but when he does, 2 will come along at once. Real. Sai AVFC saying 3-1. That seems to be a popular score. Stephen Van Leer says 3-1 Villa. Michael says 2-0 Villa, agreeing with you, Kev. Weston says 2-0 Villa. Have you given your score prediction as 2-0 to Deontay as well on the predictions league?
I have, yeah. I always
have.
double that up now, and I think I'm doing pretty well in that league. So you might want to follow my advice. And then everyone lumps on it and goes, "Kev, we lost 4-1. What are you doing?"
Richard says 1-0 to the Villa. Cloudy with a chance of reform says Head says 1-1. Hart wants a 3-0. Black Country Villain says 2-1 Villa. Stephen says 4-1 Villa. Watkins, Brace, McGinn, and Matson. Joey Cusack says 4-2 Villa. We might go behind though. Well, we probably know that's going to happen because we don't make it easy for ourselves. Definitely not. Gary says Villa boys 2. The boys. I like what you've done there. 1. And Michael Gillespie says 3-2 Villa. I'm going to say 4-1 Villa. Let's do it.
He's gone for it, isn't
Let's do it. 4-1 Villa.
No clean sheet, there was a.
Watkins goal. Rodgers. Durán. I'll say Watkins 2 as well. Okay. Watkins 2, Rodgers, Durán.
Where'd you get the idea of that from? Watkins 2? Where'd you hear that from?
you just like twigged my mind, and I thought, yes, I like that.
Watkins maybe could score 2. Maybe he
could. He could. He doesn't do it very often. That's one of the criticisms I've got with him. PJJ says 3-1 Villa. Watkins and JJ. Michael says 3-0 positive vibes up the Villa. Ronan says 3-0 the Villa. Gary says 4-1 Y Rich. Heighton says 3-1. No messing around. Exactly, Michael. No messing around. And where's who is it? Is it Paul who usually says 6-1 Villa? Where's Paul?
Where's Paul?
Where is he? Where is he?
David's given us a good one. Austin McPhee's hat trick.
Yeah. He'll claim it. If we score a set piece, he'll claim it. Definitely. I'm surprised he hasn't asked for a goal bonus.
By the way, Keshi Anderson scored an absolute banger for Blues to get 1-0 up. Not that this is the Blues podcast, but serious goal.
It's not a good way to finish it, Kev.
No, but Villa here. Also Blues is shit. There you go. How's that?
Paul says 2-0 Villa win. Yes, definitely. Right. That is it for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for jumping on and joining us. Nearly 500 of you in the chat. Amazing stuff. Make sure you smash the like button and hit that subscribe button if you are on YouTube. Help us continue on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Follow us at Villa Park Pod. Follow us at KTAVFC. We'll be back with match reaction, instant reaction from myself tomorrow, hopefully after securing that top 8 spot. Come on, Barca, beat Atalanta for us, or whatever the other results. Make sure you do that for us. We'll also should be back with the Lions Raw match reaction as well, especially if we get the result. Wolves preview, transfer talk, all that, you name it. Stick with the channel. Make sure you keep tuned to the channel. Kev, thank you very much for joining. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.